Khamzat Chimaev is the new UFC middleweight champion after beating Dricus du Plessis by unanimous decision. As I predicted, Khamzat won. He didn't gas out and he dominated Dricus du Plessis, bro. Did you see that? Khamzat is too good, bro. Oh, that wrestling, man, it's too good. It's too good. Oh, domination. That was my best attempt at a Khamzat Glazer impression. And look, even though I myself predicted him to win, I did not expect whatever that was. This is a very unpopular opinion, but that was a disgraceful championship performance. And before you Glazers start hating, are you going to tell me you enjoy watching a fighter hold a body lock and knee the thigh for 25 minutes? You're telling me you enjoy watching that crap? A fighter with zero intent to finish. I'm talking about zero intent to finish or cause damage. But, did you see him get crucifixed, bro? Bro, that's a dominant position, bro. Pure domination. That was a domination. He destroyed him. Look, yes, that is a dominant position. Yes, that is very impressive to do to DDP. But again, he wasn't trying to cause any damage or try and set up a submission, a back take, or even mount. Khamzat was just doing the bare minimum in those positions to avoid being separated by the ref, which, must I remind you, ended up happening later in the fight. He was basically fighting like Mario Bautista, stalling the fight, doing his best impression of Torres Finney. No one wants to see a fighter avoid a fight in a fight. No one. You don't have to fight like Dan Hooker or be a striker to avoid these stalling allegations. But you also don't have to fight like Torres Finney or Mario Bautista. Grappling can be entertaining. Have you seen Pantoja? Have you seen Islam? Have you seen Charles, Tatsuo Taira, RDR, Fluffy Hernandez? Must I go on? These are all grapplers. But the difference is, when they fight, they actually fight. They look for the finish. They look to cause damage. They don't stall the fight. And most important of all, they fight. All this talk from Khamzat, all this yap about how he's going to finish Dricus in the first round, how he's going to smash him, destroy him, he stands no chance, and then he fights like Torres Finney. And before you start throwing those casual allegations or say I don't like wrestlers / grapplers or I hate on Dagestani fighters. And yes, I'm talking to you and you know who you are, all right? You know who you are. First off, Chimaev isn't Dagestani. He's not from Dagestan. He's from Chechnya. And literally two of the most entertaining fighters from the past 10 years are from Dagestan. One of them happens to be the greatest lightweight of all time and the current number 2 ranked pound for pound fighter in the world. And the other guy is an actual ninja. You guys remember Zabit? He was meant for greatness. But he sadly decided to retire due to some medical issues. But I digress. It seemed to me that Chimaev was looking to get to the two positions he's the most comfortable and the best at as fast as possible to avoid gassing out and being dragged into a brawl like with Gilbert Burns. In other words, he was looking to stall the fight. But hey, you have to give Chimaev his flowers because at the end of the day, he is the champion regardless of his boring and shameful performance. Everyone can have a lackluster performance. Like, let's not forget, Adesanya's title fights were absolutely boring before Pereira came along. Even strikers can have boring fights, so this is not me hating on wrestling and grappling. It's just me hating on fighters who avoid a fight on purpose. You know, like, you know they can do more, but they just avoid a fight and try to win on points and point fight. That's just, no, bro. If you're fighting, try to finish. Like, cause damage, you know? Anyways, and on top of that, it takes two to tango. Dricus had no answer for the chain wrestling, but primarily for that crucifix position. He had no way of stopping it or escaping it, you know? And of course, he wasn't able to handle the speed and chain wrestling from Chimaev. Chimaev did a good job of using his speed and overall wrestling advantage to bore us all to death and stall the fight to a win. Unfortunately, the judging criteria has a loophole where point fighters can stall a fight and win by a decision, regardless of their skill set. Leon Edwards is a perfect example of a striker who stalls and point fights to a decision. So it's not exclusively a wrestling and grappling issue. You know, strikers can be boring as well. Even though this was a very underwhelming title fight, no matter how much Daniel Cormier tries to gaslight us, there are quite a few takeaways from this fight, which I believe is very interesting for future matchups. First, I'll start with DDP. Even though he got out-wrestled, he wasn't necessarily out-grappled, in my opinion. Dricus showed very good submission defense. At no point at all did Chimaev ever come close to a submission or even a finish. As a matter of fact, he also never allowed Chimaev to get both hooks in or a body triangle. And it was actually Dricus who was the closest to finishing the fight when he went for that rear naked choke at the end of the fight. He had both hooks in, and the choke was almost under the chin, and it forced Chimaev to use all of his remaining energy to defend it and survive. Before that, he also temporarily stunned Chimaev with a pretty nice right hand, and he also displayed his good gas tank to still be fighting that hard towards the end of the fight after basically being on the defensive the whole fight. Now, let's talk about Khamzat and how this performance actually exposed him more than anything. Even though so many people glaze this performance, I think it exposes some of his biggest deficiencies. If I'm a top-ranked middleweight, I'm licking my lips after this performance. I'll start with the most obvious one. That is Chimaev's striking defense, or lack of it. There was barely any striking in this fight. Basically, the whole fight was just on the ground. And yet, Dricus was still able to crack him very easily. There was no improvement from the Burns fight whatsoever. And that's 3 years ago. He still doesn't move his head. And that will get him knocked out against Imavov. He also showed how scared isn't the right word. Weary he is about gassing out. He was very happy to stall and not exert any energy for a finish. This is concerning because if he fights a guy like Fluffy Hernandez in the future, he's in trouble with such an approach. Fluffy does not take his foot off the gas at all. He's practically a middleweight Marab with finishing ability. And it seems like more and more this is going to be Khamzat's kryptonite. Another thing I noticed is whenever he goes for the back take, he gets way too high. And against elite grapplers like RDR and Fluffy Hernandez, that is not going to fly. Also, his lack of submission ability against any sort of resistance or good submission defense is also troubling because RDR and Fluffy are too good on the ground to lose by stalling when there's no threat of a finish. Also, having Dricus be the one to nearly get a finish, to nearly get a submission after a dominant performance, bro, that is very concerning. If that was RDR, that fight's over. And looking at these glaring holes in his game, I might have to agree with RDR saying Chimaev is his easiest fight. They both want to fight on the ground, and RDR has much better submission ability and, in my opinion, overall grappling than Chimaev. Again, I'm not saying he's a better wrestler, but I do believe he has better grappling. And we've seen in the one fight Chimaev had against an elite grappler that not only could he not keep it on the ground, but he didn't want to. And let's not forget, he got his face rearranged by Gilbert Burns of all people. Bro, he's cooked. He's cooked. He's got to patch these holes in his game. He needs to improve. Otherwise, he's not going to stay champ for long. So, what's next? For DDP, I think he should fight the loser of Imavov Bohayo, or you could do a Fluffy Hernandez fight, but I don't think Fluffy should risk that fight against Dricus because I think Dricus could be one of his nightmare matchups, but we'll see. As for Chimaev, I think he should fight RDR or the winner of Imavov Bohayo. But if I were to get my way, I would make the RDR fight, and then the winner of that fight can fight the winner of Imavov Bohayo. But guys, here's the bad news. We're going to have to wait a long time to see these fights because Chimaev, as we all know, is very inactive. This guy is super inactive. He rarely fights more than twice a year. Don't expect him to fight again this year. And if he's going to fight next year, it'll probably be summer or October-ish. I could even see him not fight at all next year, like fake an injury or something. But anyways, we'll see. Anyways, that's my reaction to UFC 319, Dricus du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev. Drop your comments down below. Feel free to agree, disagree. I want to know your opinions. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the videos and would like to support the channel. You can do that by buying me a coffee with the link in the description. That's it from me, and I'll see you in the next one.